Since we talked about some ghosts for Phasmophobia in the last video, and there are still 9 of them left, we should knock out a couple more of them. Let's get started with some more ghost folklore about the different types of ghost in Phasmophobia. Chances are that most people above age 25 or so will know this term from the ubiquitous movie series of the same name. Most people will have at least heard of the Poltergeist, though, through absorption from popular media. The sort of generally accepted image of the Poltergeist is a troublemaker-type ghost who can physically manipulate objects in the real world to sometimes hilarious and sometimes disastrous and injurious effect. The word is, of course, German in origin, meaning something like noisy spirit, and they are the type of ghost that any random normal person on the street would likely to have heard about somewhere. The idea of the poltergeist being the reason for supernatural instances of property destruction or the like became more common in the 1600s. Their whole thing in-game is their ability to move objects way more than other ghosts can. They can shut multiple doors at a time, throw every object within their range, and generally cause havoc in a room full of stuff. In real life, poltergeist occurrences have posited objects moving on their own, loud sounds, malfunctioning of electronics and other mechanical devices. That sort of tracks with this ghost's ability to throw objects around. It is, therefore, apropos that one of the types of evidence that they produce is fingerprints. There's some prevailing ideas IRL that place poltergeists as spirits that haunt a person rather than a place, which would make sense if it weren't for the fact that this ghost is stuck in a house or a prison or something like that, and that may have something to do with the numerous cases of supposed paranormal activity that surround a person in a location, but abruptly stop when that person is no longer at that place. Maybe because the stuff that they're experiencing is fake and a hoax and set up by that person, so of course when they leave, it won't happen anymore. But in Phasmophobia, like we mentioned, they're tied to a location like all other types of ghost. There's not, a ton to really say about poltergeists that people wouldn't, already just sort of know. They have the largest range of ability to move from their chosen haunted room in a building while they're not on the hunt because they look for available items to throw around. And that tracks with a house being plagued with poltergeist occurrences no matter where the observer finds themselves. Like you'd walk out of the kitchen, and when you walk back in, all of the chairs in the kitchen are stacked up on top of the table. So obviously, if there were nobody to observe their antics, they would have no purpose, so they strive for attention by moving stuff around where an investigator in-game will see it. Here is a section of folklore about which I know significantly less: Muslim demonology. What I can tell you is like this. You know the Judeo-Christian idea of demons being these sort of evil spirits in service to the even bigger evil one, Lucifer? Jewish demonology gave us books like the Lesser Key of Solomon, which details a whole bunch of these servitor demons, what they're good at, what they can give you, and how to force them to do your bidding. Well, in Muslim demonology, Jinn occupy a sort of similar spot. They are an entity that is invisible to the naked eye most of the time, but can take on the shape of a human or an animal, and, at least originally, are not inherently good or evil, but are instead created with the same free will that humans have, that is required to choose whether to accept Allah's guidance or not. They can be summoned and bound to the summoner, just like the Abrahamic demons. In the game, they're said to be territorial, and will generally leave an investigator mostly alone if they don't enter the genie's room. Yes, that's right, Jinn is plural, genie is singular. They're also more able to travel if the breaker in the house is on, and they are crazy fast as a result of this. One reason that this ability to travel through the sort of electrical system and in places where lights are was given to them could be their association with what the Quran called smokeless fire, from which God is said to have created them. A few modern interpretations of this smokeless fire have pointed toward the link with electricity or power, so they are empowered when given access to the thing from which they were birthed. That makes sense. Their special power is they can instantly decrease the sanity of everyone around them by a pretty big amount, in an area of effect attack. Why this power was given to them specifically is something I can't exactly pinpoint, to be honest. I wonder if this was one of the sort of later additions to the ghost list, and they just took up the abilities that had been determined for this unnamed ghost, but had to put a name to it some type or another. I'll tell you what, I'm singularly unqualified to talk about Islamic mythology, but if you want to dig deeper into it, there are tons of resources available online for it, including both in print and on YouTube. Knock yourself out. It is a deep rabbit hole, and it is very fascinating. People will think of banshees like the sort of screaming skeleton head that flies around and is often on fire thanks to games like Castlevania, but there's so much more to it than just that. In fact, these are Celtic spirits from Irish folklore that portend the death of a family member with their screaming and wailing, and technically, they aren't even ghosts at all, but are actually fairy creatures, who are only associated with death because they sing their sort of mournful dirges and wailings when a member of a family dies. Even if they die far away from their family, the family will hear the wailings of this Banshee. They were like a mythological early news system for when one of your family members kicks the bucket. They are also technically a sort of like prescient creature as well, doing the same kind of keening and wailing when someone is about to enter a situation in which they will very likely be killed. There are some accounts that rarely will state the fairy woman would also simultaneously be the ghost of a woman who is either murdered or killed in childbirth turned into a fairy creature, but those accounts are significantly fewer. What has happened, though, is a sort of mythological adaptation by popular media and culture to turn the Banshee into a sort of terrible creature that causes death with her screech. And this is a shame because this poor fairy mourner only mourns the passing of others rather than actually causing them. Except in this game. In Phasmophobia, the Banshee, who is a female spirit in myth but can actually be male or female in Phasmo, is said to be a natural hunter. They choose one investigator and will hunt only that investigator until they are dead, and only then will they switch to another target. While this is rather contrary to the established historical lore about the fairy woman, it does at least track with the Banshees being a portent of a person's death. That one person is technically entering a situation wherein they are very likely to die, even if it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The Banshee also has a special power to navigate directly to the person they target, which further reinforces this. But what gets me, though, is that they are sensitive to the crucifix and can be stopped from further away than normal ghosts by using this crucifix. Could this be a metaphoric allusion to the fact that Christianity has all but devastated the native religious practices in Ireland because they ruin everything they touch? I think we're going to need to maybe pull back a little bit off of that one and wait until the next video to talk about the next 3 ghosts in the game. So if you have not already done so, please click that bell icon as it will let you know when the next video comes out. And also, like, come on, hit that subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, then you've done a good job. But if you're not subscribed and you're watching this without being subscribed, like, why? Be cool. Hit that sub button. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.